so? Yeah.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Getting Blunt with Keith. Today's guest is legendary TV icon Mike Watkiss, who has actually been on the show before. He was on episode 64 of the Bogcast, and he was actually the very first guest on this show, Getting Blunt with Keith. He has an amazing book out right now called Story Hustler, Murder-Mayhem-PTSD, which details his over 40 years as a news personality, covering everything from OJ to Michael Jackson. He was in a room with Richard Ramirez. You can actually watch that on YouTube right now. Warren Jeffs, Tanya Harding. And if you grew up in Arizona, you definitely had him on your television at some point. And he was even in one of the most iconic scenes in Dumb and Dumber. You can look that up on YouTube or just watch Dumb and Dumber. It's a fucking great movie. And speaking of Warren Jeffs, he's even in that Netflix documentary, Keep Sweet, Pray, and Obey, which you can watch now. Anyway, guys, I could go on and on about Mike Watkiss. He's definitely one of the coolest dudes I've ever met. He has a YouTube channel with his daughter, Dylan. I'm really excited to talk about it. It's called Story Hustler. I highly suggest going over there and subscribing and enjoy the show. Also, really quick, this show is brought to you by manscaped.com. Use promo code Bogcast for 20% off plus free shipping. That's promo code Bogcast for 20% off plus free shipping at manscaped.com. Well, let's get into it. What's up, everyone? Welcome to another episode of Getting Blunt with Keith. I am stoked to talk to the legendary TV icon Mike Watkiss and his daughter Dylan. Thanks for coming on the show.
It's a pleasure to be here, Keith. Great to see you, buddy.
Yeah, totally, man. You've been on the show a few times. You've been on the podcast, and you were actually the very first episode of Getting Blunt with Keith. And usually we're talking about all the cool stuff you did in your book, Story Hustler, Murder-Mayhem-PTSD. Everything from OJ to the Michael Jackson story to Richard Ramirez, Warren Jeffs. But now you have a YouTube channel called Story Hustler with your daughter, Dylan. And I just thought it'd be cool if we talked about that. But I was just curious, can you just talk about your new YouTube channel and the subjects you talk about and, maybe like how and what inspired you to start it?
I'm going to defer to my executive producer about the origins of our show because
Sweet.
It's her baby. So take it away.
Yeah, so his book came out during the pandemic, and it was kind of a family affair. We all read it and gave our edits kind of rapid fire. And then once it came out, we were like, how can we incorporate this into the digital world? And YouTube was blowing up. I mean, TikTok, all that kind of stuff. So we had the great idea to start turning each of the chapters into a YouTube episode. And from there, it kind of sparked Story Hustler, the YouTube channel. And it was just a true crime deep dive into past crimes. But now it's kind of taken a turn, and we're now doing more current journalism, real crimes, real time, similar stuff to what Mike covered in his career, the FLDS. That's an ongoing story that never seems to end. So yeah, we found ourselves wrapped up in more current news, and we're kind of excited about the direction that's going.
That's badass. So you guys kind of do it in a season format, right? What season are you guys on right now?
We started doing it in seasons. It's kind of just gotten jumbled up. I think we're on episode 38 now. So 38. I guess we could say like coming up on the 4th season.
Yeah. And it really just started. It was sort of post-pandemic, and Dylan was home from college, and everybody was sort of stir crazy. So she and I just started sitting out in our patio originally and telling some of these stories from the book, and I got to confess, Keith, we don't have the slick operation and technical savvy that you do. So our first shows it was debatable who was more audible, us or
no, dude, if you look back at our old episodes, man, they're complete dog shit. Like our first episode, like the audio is off from the lips. I mean, it doesn't get worse than that.
Right. This is why
we're competing with the cicadas outside, so there's a constant hum in all the background of those early videos.
But they've gotten better, and as Dylan, we started this just sort of yucking it up about, let's talk about OJ. history. Let's talk about Richard Ramirez, history. And so most of the first, half of our 38 shows, we're looking at sort of historic events that have been chiseled into the facade of history. But suddenly this last year, we found ourselves really swept up in, I don't know. I feel like I can never get this thing behind me. But the whole Warren Jeffs thing seems to have blown up in real time once again this year. And now Dylan and I have sort of turned our broadcast into what I think has been sort of the most accurate chronicle of a bunch of really ominous and shitty events that have happened over the course of the last year. And in some ways, we had a network do a big special on sort of a portion of what we've been talking about recently. And it was good to see it at a national level. But once again, like the old times, I feel like we're sort of ahead of the curve explaining what's going on in a real bad situation. And we're hoping that people will listen. And again, this is why I'm always grateful for you because you're supportive of some of the stories I've told, and just allowing us to talk about them is really the only weapon I have anymore to just make sure that people are aware of this stuff.
Well, that's what I think. I really enjoy your content and your book, and just, like I said, growing up with you on, my television, every week. And it's because you shed light on all these, different cults, and people consider themselves like prophets and stuff like that. Is there a reason you're drawn to these stories? Is there a reason why you go after these particular kinds of stories?
Well, I honestly say because I know them. I know them. I grew up in Utah. I have a Mormon past. My wife and I both come from, that kind of legacy. We both had polygamist ancestors. So, I mean, none of this is new and none of this is unfamiliar. And I think when most of the world comes in and starts looking at this story, it's like, wow, they're just immediately blown away by how different this culture is right here in our backyard that most people have not known about over the course of time. But if you grew up there, it's not very surprising. And it's just early on, I sort of was aware of the sort of dark side. I think in most coverage over the decades, it's been, this weird family that shares a husband, and they wear, they have funny hair and prairie dresses, but otherwise they're just kind of weird people. There's a real dark side to that. And I sort of was aware that was how it worked. And so I started telling stories that I knew that were sort of in my own backyard. And it sort of led to a whole career of covering it because, and to be honest with you, Keith, the thing that's sort of frustrating and perhaps enlightening at the end of the day, it's still the same damn story. Guys doing basically the same thing in just different locations with sort of different day-to-day MOs, but still just, controlling and hurting the women and controlling people's lives and sort of mandating how young girls are parceled out in the community because that's the currency that keeps it together. And it hasn't changed over time.
That's crazy because there are getting a lot of eyes on these kinds of stories and stuff, and the fact that they're still getting away with this. Is it still within the FLDS, or is it like other kinds of religions also doing it, or like how are they getting away with this? I don't understand that.
Well, it seems, I mean, there's a couple different storylines going on with this one story. You have Sam Bateman, who is in prison and is kind of a knockoff of Warren. He kind of did his own thing, separated a few years ago and brought some followers with him. So he's got his own community going, and he got busted for transporting kids and all this kind of stuff, just a traffic bust. And then it, started piling on. Child porn and all this other stuff came out about him. So he's down in a Phoenix prison right now, and his court dates are coming up. So we'll be covering those more. But they're throwing the book at him and all of his followers. They're really going after them and getting them on any sort of charges they can get, which is just completely opposite to what you have going on with Warren Jeffs and Heber Jeffs. So last summer, the documentary on Netflix dropped about, the FLDS. And right around the same time, Warren issued this revelation, we're going to start gathering up the families again, and we're going to start these celestial marriages. And once Warren was put in prison originally, 10 plus years ago, he was like, stop marrying people, stop having kids, any good things that I can't have in prison, like my followers can't do outside. So there's kind of just like this pause on this community, which, you know, you're not going to sustain a community if you're not having children. So he put out this revelation, said, gather up the families. We're going to start these marriages again. And it inevitably means gather up the girls. We need to parcel them out to the most loyal followers. So since then, 8 kids that we know of and have documented have gone missing, but there's, I'm sure, more cases out there. And yeah, there's like a worry that in 5.5 years, you know, the doomsday apocalypse is going to happen, and Warren's predicted that. And these marriages, these kids are going missing, and these marriages are going to start up again. And they obviously go after the young kids in this community. So the fact that Warren is still able to control these people, like his young nephew who we covered, Heber, who got caught kidnapping one of these kids, but then was let go with just basically a slap on the wrist, you know, when they're going after Sam Bateman and this whole other tribe. But Warren's doing the same exact thing and probably has more control over more people, and they just won't do anything about it.
Yeah. You asked the question there. We're fault. These are two. The Sam Bateman issue is basically just a knockoff. Some guy that left the FLDS and started his own little really pervy, twisted kind of cult, and he just got busted. And that's going to be an ongoing trial in Phoenix's federal court. So it's going to be convenient for Dylan and I to cover that. And that's just sort of a knockoff. And then you have this other larger community of Warren Jeffs that issuing a proclamation they're going to resume these marriages, and in that space of time, in this 1 year, a large number of children have just gone missing, being these sort of orchestrated runaways or kidnappings or abductions. And it's all because they are in fact pulling children back in to start performing marriages. But on a larger scale, I think that you've been around long enough, Keith. I think most fundamentalist religions start to really have weird, all of them are weird about women and the control of women, the control of sex. And these fundamentalist Mormons are certainly no exception. But I think you can see that across the board with sort of zealot fundamentalists of all stripe.
You're right about how you guys are always ahead of the curve. It's crazy how you guys were talking about a story, and then all of a sudden either, it becomes a big news story, or there's some documentary on it on some network or something like that. How do you guys find out about these stories originally, and what kind of investigation and behind the scenes is taking place that to get this information and break these stories?
Well, I mean,
well, you don't have to give away any secrets.
It ain't a secret, really. Go ahead, Dill.
It's kind of just dumb luck. I mean, he was in this story, deep in this story for many years, and then Warren went to prison, and everyone kind of was like, oh, it's done. It's over. That community's, dead and gone. But I mean, within the last year, we've just been contacted by some people that, he had formerly helped out. Some of the early advocates for getting women out had reached out to us and said, a family friend of ours, their daughter's missing and we need help. So he kind of came out of retirement last summer and did a documentary for 3TV on that, and did a really nice package deal with a great cameraman, Adrian. And so that kind of got the ball rolling. And then once we heard about that girl, there was other kids that came, families that came forward and said, our child's missing. And we ended up going to a news conference for these missing kids and these families.
Wow.
In April. Yeah.
That's really awesome that you've kind of became this conduit of like people to go to give you information, right?
I'll tell you, Keith, the honest truth is I was so hoping that this story was in my rear view mirror when I retired 5 years ago. And for the first 4 years of my retirement, it really was. The last thing I wanted to talk about was this or anything else. These people from this Netflix documentary, Keep Sweet, approached me sometime ago, and I sort of agreed to sit down for a long interview and give them some of my stuff. And I thought that was sort of planting my flag in the sand, my final statement on this stuff. I'd help these guys. They do sort of a definitive documentary and tell you where the story has been. And that Keep Sweet, Pray and Obey, I think they did a great job. It dropped. I mean, the timing is weird. The last summer, that Netflix documentary dropped in early June, and it really seemed to be a sensation. A lot of people approaching me all over the place saying they'd seen it. Dylan got the same sort of reactions. So it was a big deal and certainly awakened the issue. But it just so happens, literally the same week that that doc dropped, Warren is issuing this cockamamie revelation from his prison cell in Texas, where he's spending life for raping 2 girls. He continues to put out these stupid revelations, and he basically said, "We're back in the marrying game. Gather up the children." As soon as I heard that, I knew that that was a really bad thing coming from those kind of words coming from his mouth. This meant we're back in the game of raping the little girls and trafficking children, and he just put it in writing. I don't know if everybody else saw it as ominously as I did.
Do you think that the documentary, in a sense, like got to his head? Like,
no, I
think honestly the revelation came out before the documentary.
Oh, it did. Okay,
I think
okay,
it just coincidentally happened in the same summer.
Okay.
I think that was just utter weird
timing. Yeah.
Yeah, but so suddenly the world's sort of, talking about this issue again. And Warren has issued this revelation, basically says we're back in the same old dirty game we've always been in. And so old timers like me, I knew what that meant. And a number of people approached me after the documentary, said, go up and do sort of a, retrospective on the town. I thought, that's not something I'm interested in. It's their documentary. I did my thing. But then I got a phone call late one night from one of the first girls that we had ever helped get out of there or helped create their story. And her, a woman named Ruth Stubbs. She's now, has her own family. But when I met her, she was a teenager, pregnant teenager running with 2 children from that community. Her story was pivotal 25 years ago. So we focus. Ruth was a pivotal player in the history of this story. And suddenly I'm getting a call from her in the middle of the night saying, Mike, I got a family friends that need your help. And here's this girl that had changed history, helped the prosecution of Warren Jeffs. She's now up there, and she's got friends of hers, middle-aged friends that have teenage kids who are being drawn back in. And it was the one phone call I could not ignore, coming from a gal that I'd known her whole life, and she stood up against Warren Jeffs. Now she's got this couple, these friends whose daughter went missing, and their life story is just a roadmap of the trauma that Warren Jeffs has inflicted on families. And they had a missing daughter. And suddenly Dylan and I are back in the game because I'm a sucker for people calling me up and asking me for help. And I said yes. And we've been in it ever since.
Yeah, that's crazy. So, Dylan, what was it like for you just growing up, knowing about this story and your dad covering it, and then, all of a sudden seeing it on Netflix and, your dad talking about it, stuff like that? Becoming big, almost becoming bigger than ever, right? The story?
Yeah. I feel like growing up, it was definitely more of a kind of hush-hush topic. Not many people knew about it. Obviously, I knew about it because it was what he covered most of the time. So, but yeah, I would, mention it to friends and be like, the FLDS, and they'd be like, the what? And so I'd have to explain it, like not many people knew about this, but then the Netflix dropped and it's just like, yeah, it's been a worldwide discussion ever since. And I'm grateful for it. It's kind of coming a little too late. It feels like, Warren's in prison, but now it's sparking up this whole new wave. So hopefully people are opening their eyes in time to help with this. But I honestly, it's awful. I find it, growing up, he covered it and I'm just kind of thinking it's over, but now it's happening again. And I feel like it's a crime to know that this is happening to these kids and to not do anything about it. So just growing up having this information, now I'm like, well, how can I help and what can I do? And, we might not have the biggest platform on YouTube or on social media, but the more people talk about the story and the more eyes get on it, no matter where they come from, I think it's going to help this story inevitably. Like, there is no bad press in this case. And if we can go interview one mother and get her story out there and do something, like, I feel like we've done our jobs.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty crazy when me and my girlfriend, we were just scrolling through Netflix just randomly. And I was like, oh shit, what is this? Keep sweet, pray and obey. This is that stuff Mike Watkiss is always talking. I looked at my girl, I go, he better be in this documentary. And then when I saw you, I was like, oh yeah, this is badass. That was really cool, man. Did they send a camera crew out here to shoot that, or did you end up going to Netflix? Or
no, Dill sat in on one of the interviews. They were a nice crew. They approached me. I've turned down a lot of projects along those lines, but these folks came to me and I sort of expressed my concerns, how they were going to tell the story. And the bottom line is, I think they did a great job. But no, they came in, and over the course of time, we sat down and looked at a lot of tapes, some old stories of mine, and then I sat down and did an interview with them that was several hours long, going over a lot of this. And I think there's some. I don't know if what the plans are, but there was at least some talk of a second season of that, and I don't know where the producers are on that, but I know I have heard some talk that they were looking at putting together a second season of that. But it was they came here, a couple of long interviews. Dylan sat in, listened to me ramble in one of them, and yeah, but a nice group of people, and I think they did I think Keep Sweet and Pray and Obey is a great encapsulation of what's gone on basically over the last 30 years. The only flaw, and it's not anything wrong with the documentary, but I think people will watch it and think, wow, okay, that's over. Basically, it's kind of, you've got this whole story, and the narrative beautifully sort of comes to an end. But the thing that Dylan and I are sort of preaching in our little podcast is this story never ends. These guys are just going to move somewhere else and do the same damn thing over again. And now they've relocated. Really, they're not even, that Colorado City Hilldale area is not their property anymore. They don't run that place. They're moving up towards the Canadian border, as far as we can understand, North Dakota. And that's where this story is going to start having problems, because they're all communing up there and taking all the kids that they're kidnapping up there. So Dylan and I are telling that story, and that's the point. We wanted to let, this is never going to go away. These guys, wherever they go, they're going to keep doing the same bullshit. And if you think it's important, then you gotta pay attention.
That was actually one of my questions is, was there anything in the document that they, wish they included? Because I thought it was, obviously the story's sick, but as far as a documentary, really, really well produced and well done,
No doubt.
And the only criticism that I ever saw about the documentary was that they didn't paint him enough as a monster. And they, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. What did you, what would you say to something like that?
What do you think, Dill?
Honestly, I think the documentary was incredible, because I think that they focused on the right story, which was the women's story. And a lot of times you go in and you try to make this some person came in from the outside and saved all these people, but that's just not true. It's, the people who are indoctrinated into this lifestyle that really stood up, thought, and fought back. And I thought they did an excellent job in highlighting that. But in terms of whether he came off as enough of a monster, I mean, just talking about what he did and the reason he's in prison, I feel like shows enough of a monster to me personally. Just, you tell me you raped 2 young girls, that's enough of a monster to me.
For sure.
Show me more. But I also think that they did a good job in showing how this community views this man, because from an outside perspective, it's so easy to be how are these people so naive, and how can they think this and think this one man is just above everything else? But the way I feel like they portrayed it is you really understand how isolated this community is from everything else in the world. No TVs, no outside news, no nothing. You grow up in this is all you know. If you choose to go outside of the community, you're basically choosing eternal damnation. You'll never see your family again. You're going to hell, you're screwed. It's the worst possible thing you could choose. So yeah, people stay in, they get indoctrinated into this. And so they view this man as the God, as someone who's never going to do wrong and is never capable of doing or saying anything wrong. And so I do think that they did a good job in showing you how this community idolizes these prophets and the dangers of that. I don't think they needed to make him more of a monster, because like I said, you're in prison for raping 2 young girls.
Oh, I agree with that. Like I said,
I feel like
it's a 10 out of a 10 across the board. That was just a few criticisms that I
there's really nothing I feel like they could have done more. But
you guys were so heavily involved with this story. Was there anything that you guys actually learned from watching the documentary that maybe you didn't know before, or you're like, oh cow, or
yeah.
Yeah, I feel like things were pointed out that I might be had kind of buried in the back of my mind, just the being a hypocrites. I mean, prophet's supposed to be anointed by God, but it went down from Rulon, then to his son, now to the Warren's son. So it's just like, okay, it's like interesting to kind of see just how they don't fully believe what they preach, but you know, they believe all this other stuff that they preach. So like what they kind
just
of
how hypocritical it is.
Follow.
Yeah.
Right on. Let's see here. I wanted to talk about some of the other stories that you guys cover on your YouTube channel here. I know one was said, "Where's Baby Gabriel?" I guess there's a new blockbuster docu-series that's on Peacock now. Do you have a hand in that at all?
Well, it just so happens. Yeah, they did. They've done a pretty deep dive. A British guy named Thomas Leader approached me on that story again a long time ago, and said, "Do you want to sit down and talk about it?" And so I have a brief appearance in this thing. Where's Baby Gabriel? But again, this is one of those stories that we wanted to get on just because it's eyeballs on the story that matter. Because it's sort of like the FLDS case. It's about missing children. This is one of those cases. You know this story, Keith. Anybody who was alive and breathing in the valley, you know, back in the day, remembers the story of Baby Gabriel. And this producer from Great Britain came through town and called me and said, "Will you sit down and talk about it?" So we did. But to his credit, he talked to people who really know the story, and it's a human tragedy, whatever happened to this kid, this beautiful little boy. But this producer was able to get people talking about this story that's now whatever. What is it, Dylan? 14, 15 years old now.
Happened in 2009. So
2009. So and so yeah, I'm in it, and we did a recent episode on that. And again, this is really just to encourage people. First of all, if anybody in your audience is at all interested, check out Peacock, the channel, and it's a documentary called "Where's Baby Gabriel," 3-part series. We gave a little bit of narrative in it, but it tells the story about this child who just vanished, and it's still not clear whether his mother killed him or gave him to some mysterious couple in a San Antonio park and went on her way. Nobody knows. So it's a great mystery, great story, great doc.
And I feel like it leaves you honestly even more confused after the doc, because you might have had some, you know, ideas of what you thought might have happened in that story, but I left thinking, you know, I have no idea what happened. There's so much evidence pointing to both directions. Some days, you know, I think it's one thing. Some days I think it's another.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't realize that there was another documentary about it, so I didn't get a chance to watch it, but I'll definitely check that out this weekend for sure.
It's pretty good. I mean,
it's very good.
Yeah, very well, you know, from just putting together a story that's very compelling. And this guy gets A+ because he gets everybody to talk, with the notable exception of the one person who should talk, the mother, who still hasn't really explained what happened. But other than that, they get everybody to tell the story, and there's incredible audio tapes and telephone conversations. And again, just to sort of pique the interest of your viewers, they should watch Where's Baby Gabriel on Peacock.
Yeah, I'll put links for everything in the description, like definitely for your book, for your YouTube channel, for the Peacock, you know, the Netflix doc, all that stuff. So you have a lot of exciting stuff going on. It's like, you know, the more people that are doing this, man, the more chance it does having to go to a national stage. You know, my dog's hey, what's up, Yurdy?
Oh,
I got these. These are like my kids. So sorry about that. Come on, get down, Yurdy. Come on, it's okay.
Keith is a very proud dog owner, and well, he should. He's got beautiful dogs.
Yeah, they're like my pretty much like my kids.
Yeah. Hey, listen, I'll swap you if you want.
I'll throw you in the pool.
Oh,
I don't know. These are like permanent 2-year-olds. I don't know if you.
Hey, that sounds like my kid.
that shed
I'll
constantly.
swap my dad for one.
Speaking of your dad, growing up, was it normal or weird just to have your dad as like a newscaster in everyone's television all the time? Was that just And like, at what point did you realize, like, man, my dad has a cool job and he's tackling some like cool issues and cool stories. This is pretty cool.
I might leave the room during this.
I don't know that it ever fully hit me like what his job was. Like, I don't know. I just kind of grew up and it was like that was his job. That was just the norm to me. It would be like if he was an accountant, you know, that was just like what he did on a day-to-day basis. So like when we'd go out and he would people would recognize him and just kind of be like, oh, well, that's my dad. Like, I'll take a picture if you guys want, you know, kind of thing. I don't know. I guess I never really like put 2 and 2 together. He's just, you know, the little old man to me.
Yeah, Keith, you probably get recognized a lot out here in Arizona for sure.
Well, that's why I keep changing it up. You know,
it didn't work at the premiere. Like I said, my high school friends were like, "Is that Mike Watkiss? Like what?" I was like,
"Yeah,
it's not working."
I'm trying to dive into witness protection somewhere, but I can't really get the right look going. So I don't know.
Let's see here. I got a few more questions. I know you've been acting a lot lately. Do you have interest in acting yourself, Dylan, or is that something just that you let your dad do?
Yeah, I actually started acting when I was younger, and then my brother started playing basketball, and then we kind of switched. So he did that in college, acting in college. I did basketball, but I grew up with, you know, my hands in the theater. So it's definitely something I would return to. I think for right now, I need to make some money. So I need to get my feet set a little bit more. And then
they definitely don't act then.
No. Yeah, wrong course to take if you need dough. That's not
exactly. So
yeah, are you actively like going on auditions and stuff, Mike, or are you kind of like wait for the roles to come to you? Or
well, you know, I wish I was working a ton more, but I get some that come to me, and you know, and it's turned down some that I probably should take, but so I'm a little picky, but you know, I'm definitely interested in working. So I'm upset that I wasn't in your film, Keith.
You know what, dude? I actually wrote you in. I wrote you into the next episode. The next one.
For folks who don't know, Keith is a very accomplished director who produced perhaps one of the funniest movies I've ever seen, and created one of the funniest characters in cinematic history. So you got to see his film.
I don't think you realize how much that means. Thank you for that.
The sound guy.
Yes, sir. The sound guy. Yeah.
Oh yeah, terrific film. You guys. That's somewhere. Somebody's going to pick that up, and that's going to be on a streaming channel. And you guys should make some money with that because that's a great film.
I appreciate that. And once we do get the funding and shoot the rest of the season, like I said, I did write you into the second episode, so you're already cast. You already got that job.
I'll continue to say whatever I need to say.
No, but one of my favorite things to ask actors is if they have any audition horror stories, because I think we've all been through those. Like, have you gone on an audition where it's just a complete disaster and you're like, oh my god, like you almost quit acting right after or anything? That's like almost every audition for me, by the way.
Yeah, well, and good. I'm glad. That's so nice to hear. That's reassuring. There's, you know what, my biggest and this is it's sort of defined my career. I'm really dyslexic. Just crazy dyslexic. So it prevented me from ever becoming a TV anchor and making a lot more money. But I mean, I was not suited to sit in the office, sit in the air-conditioned studio. But so I can't read a teleprompter, and I can't. And so I'm dyslexic as hell. So auditions are a nightmare for me. You know, and see if you find ways to cope, hopefully get the scripts, and then I have a good memory because I think I am dyslexic. But no, I hate cold auditions are a nightmare.
Yeah, it's definitely.
You know what, you go through them, and sometimes and there's been sometimes that I thought it was a nightmare, and I landed the part. You know,
I know, isn't that weird? Like when you think you do well, you never get it, but then when you're like, man,
that sucked,
ass right there, and then they call you back, like, really, what?
Yeah, oh my God! So did you see that was me doing that terrible interview?
So you were doing all that reporting back in the day just off the fly, like you weren't reading anything?
Oh
I
no,
always thought I thought you just always read something, or
no, I wrote all my own scripts, and people used to. One of my trademarks, I always had a yellow legal pad in my hand. At least reporters, camera guys will remember that, because I had to write all my own stuff out. I really couldn't put it in a computer. I just had to do. I think most dyslexics who actually succeed at something, you just find a different way to do it, and it was not a handicap. I felt like it was. I'm not. Don't want anybody feeling sorry for me, but that has made auditions difficult, and it basically precluded me from ever sitting inside the television studio and reading teleprompters, because I can't read them. The words blur all over. So I always sucked when I was inside the TV studio, so I tried never to be there.
Yeah, you weren't meant to be in there anyway,
I was
man.
not meant to be
Yeah,
there.
no,
That's right.
yeah. Those outside newscasts that you do are legendary, man.
Well, you see, I kept telling I'm an outdoor pet.
He's a stray cat, as we call him.
I'm a stray cat.
Well, kind of in the same idea of the audition horror stories, was there any like live newcast that you did that just kind of, turned to shit, and you're just like,
okay, I can't even tell how many train wrecks I had. Dude, I did that for 40 years, and I tell my kids I spent 40 years trying to do the perfect live shot, and I never succeeded. I can go back and look at something, God, I wish I'd done it that way. I wish I had that word. The emphasis was wrong. I'm stupid. I said something that was incorrect. I mean, and every one of those, I did a lot of good ones. I did a lot of good ones. The handful, the several that I just completely tanked are the ones I always remember.
Yeah, you always do. But you know what? Like Michael Jordan missed more shots, game-winning shots, than he made. You know what I mean? And people only actually remember the game-winning ones, right?
Well, if you're gonna liken me in any way, shape, or form to Michael Jordan,
definitely, dude.
In
your field,
I don't know if
seriously.
I'm good. Thank you, Keith. I love you, buddy. Thank you.
No, definitely. In all your years of reporting, because you've met Brian McClade, the co-host of the Bogcast, before, and
I love him, and I know his uncle, Bob.
Oh yeah, Bob, he's in the radio.
Great guy in the in the journalism field reporter and anchor rank. It's over at KTAR. So yeah, definitely know Brian.
Yeah, I forgot about that. So he's obsessed with like UFOs and UAPs, and we actually talk about it on the podcast. We have a segment on there. Did you ever cover that in reporting wise, or have any interest in that at all? Or
I haven't. I'm totally interested, and if there are alien abductors, I'm at my age, I'm available, and they would be a great story. So come get me. But I did some stuff on the Phoenix Lights, but I have never done any deep dive into sort of UFO, either serious or frivolous in my career. I'd like to have done that more.
Yeah.
I wish. Yeah.
I always felt like the media kind of like looked down upon it, kind of as like people are UFOs or kind of goofy in a way, but now it's like more popular and trendy than ever. Like there's actually a lot of attention on it.
Stigma. I bet there. I would.
That stigma, yeah.
Like somebody with UFO, they're wearing the protective cellophane hats, or the aluminum hat, whatever. Yeah. They get categorized, but certainly there's a lot more serious talk these days, isn't there?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, McClay keeps telling me like something's going to happen any minute, but he's been saying that for like 20 years, so I'm just waiting for whatever.
You know what? Someday he's going to be right.
Exactly.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah. Yeah, you're right about that. This question's for both of you guys. What are your thoughts on the media today? And like, do you have trusted news sources that you guys rely upon? There's so much just crazy information coming from different angles and narratives being spun like that, and especially you, Mike, coming from media, like who do you trust in the media these days?
Story Hustler, the YouTube channel,
yeah,
and the Bogcast. Yeah, those are the guys I trust.
Don't trust the Bogcast.
You gotta. I mean, you got to be a consumer and try to educate yourself on, because you definitely have pulpits on television that now will preach to you a bunch of bullshit. So I think you got to go out and actively try to be educated. And I don't, yeah. I don't think I could, a guy like me could exist. I don't know if I could do my career today. So I don't even know. I don't feel like I'm a good person to lecture on where it is. And I certainly don't. I think I'm a good person to give young people guidance, because I don't know if you could do what I did.
And I also don't feel like our family's necessarily the ones to talk to about where to get news, just because, I mean, we were in the news with him, so it's just kind of like we had to know what was going on, because that's probably what he was covering that day. So in terms of like growing up in the news, it was just like I kind of always knew the current events that were happening, at least around the valley, until I got older and got, more aware of the world. But yeah, like social media is probably one of the biggest ones to just get information from. I mean, something's breaking and someone's going to have a headline on it within seconds, whether it's a news
story.
Isn't
that crazy?
Which is a good thing and a terrifying thing.
Yeah. I mean, there's civic journalists everywhere, which makes it, awesome, because someone could blow up the next news story, but it's also terrifying because someone could just make up lies and spread them all over and everyone believes them. So.
Yeah.
And you bring up, we're just trying to figure this out in real time. And I feel like you're ahead of us, Keith. But, we feel like we have something to say in our little, YouTube channel. You feel like you've got something to say. And then now trying to navigate and find the right platform and how to present it and connect with an audience. It is the challenge of all the storytellers now. But this is the new wild frontier that we're on. And And thank God I got my daughter, because I can't even turn on my computer. But thank goodness for that. I'm an old guy, but trying to now take baby steps into this weird new world of trying to get out and disseminate, thoughts and news and information to a whole new world. It's something that's, blowing my mind. I'm glad I got my daughter with me, but we're trying to figure it out.
And I feel like journalism has changed. I mean, with technology too, just the field in general. I feel like it's more freelance. So it is more, the YouTube, you're on your own out in the field. You're not really in a studio anymore getting calls. And I also feel that journalism is more biased nowadays, because in order for someone to trust to get their news from you, like, you have to sell you as a brand to be a journalist. So, I mean, we're not completely unbiased on our show, and I won't.
And with that comes their opinion. With that comes their opinion.
I go on rants all the time, and I'll express my opinion. But I mean, at the end of the day, like, I hope to bring all the sides of the story and not just muddy that up. I hope you get all the facts from us, and maybe they're a little bit biased with my rants on there, but that's what we hope to do. And we hope that if you like us and our brand that we're building, that you come along for the journey and support us and get your friends too. So yeah, I think nowadays it's selling you as a brand, and that's what journalists have
definitely
to do.
Yeah. Are there certain like subjects or stories you guys are excited to share that maybe a lot of people don't know about that you want to get eyes on, that aren't a national headline right now?
We got a recurring theme of missing children. We're going to go down and start covering, and I know it's going to get some national attention as well. A guy named Michael Turney here in Phoenix, who is a 75-year-old guy. He's now being brought into court because his 17-year-old stepdaughter went missing about 21 years ago. It's a case with no body, but they're charging this old man with the murder of his stepdaughter. We're following that. We're going to do a deep dive into Michael's
daughter that got him caught, which is a really
another daughter.
His actual biological daughter. So it's a pretty crazy story that happened. And yeah, his court cases are coming up soon, along with the Sam Bateman case. That's going to be happening. So
the biggest thing, that Dylan and I sort of have a personal link to now, is there's this other cult leader named Sam Bateman who got busted, and his gotten quite a bit of attention because it was a knockoff of Warren Jeff's cult. But the details are very perverted and abusive, and there's all kinds of filings now against this guy. But Sam Bateman's going to go on trial in federal court. There's hearings and stuff over the next year. That's going to be an interesting trial. And this guy approached me long before he ever became a headline, Keith. Why are we involved in the stories? Because they keep coming to us. this guy, long before he ever got busted, called me and insisted on a meeting with me, saying, I'm Sam Bateman, I'm sort of a prophet, and God has told me, he's telling me this on the phone, God has told me that I need to meet Mike Watkiss and the Queen of England. I'm not making this up, Keith. So
what
this,
the fuck?
yeah, and I figured, okay, this guy's just crazy enough.
There's a good correlation between the two, obviously.
Now I'm interested. So I ended up meeting with this guy at a park, and he brought out all his polygamous wives, and they sang me carols in a Phoenix Park, his hymns. It was a freaky Twilight Zone scene. When all this happened, I didn't know who the guy was. He just insisted on meeting me. A couple of months later, he gets busted, and now he's the center of this thing. So, you know,
So you were like, holy shit, that was the guy.
The bad guys come and introduce themselves to me, and the families that need help call in the middle of the night. That's why we're back in this, because it's not like we're looking for this story. The story keeps kind of following us.
Oh, that's crazy. Do you guys, I saw recently that you guys went to Europe. Was that like more just a fun vacation, or was that like for part of the YouTube channel stuff, or?
No, so not part of the YouTube, more just fun, but I just spent my last year getting my master's and playing basketball over in England.
Oh,
so okay. I was there, and my dad just kind of helped me come and pack up my apartment to move home. And we decided that while we were over there, we might as well kind of hop around Europe a little bit. So that's what we did for a few weeks.
And party like rock stars. It was great.
Nice. How long did you stay out there for?
I think we were there for 2 weeks.
Yeah, something like that. But yeah, went to Amsterdam and Brussels and Paris and London. It was a lot of fun. But hey, I was just going to say, we were working our tails off the whole time. No fun on this trip, Keith. It was complete work the entire time.
Sometimes shooting content is work, though. Like
for me, it was.
Yeah, we were definitely doing that. So, but it was great fun, and we did shoot a couple of episodes while we were there. And so we're trying to take the show on the road whatever we can these days.
Oh, that's cool. Do you have any episodes on the road coming up?
Where do we want to go next?
Mostly at home with the court trials. We might go cover a few more stuff with, the Colorado City stuff, but that's later on down the road.
Yeah, we have sort of an extended project that we're looking at, but is primarily going to be shot in Vegas, a story that Dylan and I both are sort of committed to and we want to tell. So this may take the form of a longer sort of documentary thing, but I don't know. We're just coming up with crazy ideas, Keith, one day at a time.
Yeah. I wanted to talk to you about sometimes when you came on the podcast before and I would make a clip and you were talking about Richard Ramirez and your infamous your interview with him. Right. There's always good feedback on that, but then there's always like one or two like fans to this day like commenting the other way around, and it's really unsettling in a way. Do you ever have to deal with that personally, from that interview? Because it's weird just getting it from the clips.
Yeah, there are people who definitely are.
That's how we got the interview.
Oh yeah, I forgot when you were
one of the groupies got
you hanging outside. Yeah.
That was. But I don't spend a lot of time worrying about stuff like that. I don't know. Whatever. There's that. I have found there's a couple of cases. Jody, there are people involved in the Jody Arias case that have that sort of fanatic commitment to it one way or another. Ramirez definitely has some sort of fanatic commitment and followers, and and some of the prophets definitely have that we've covered have some. And you recognize it, and there's some unstable people in the world, but I don't lose a hell of a lot of sleep about it. Okay.
Yeah, we've had Kurt Nermy on the show talking about the Jody Arias stuff, and you're right. There's the fans on that side too.
Yeah.
So, anyway, I wanted to show everyone your guys' YouTube channel really quick. Make sure you guys go over there and subscribe. You can also check out Keep Sweet, Pray and Obey. It is on Netflix. I love how you're the first name right there too. This is the main star on there. It's pretty dope. Make sure you check out Story Hustler, Murder-Mayhem-PTSD, the book. I actually got it right here. And Mike Watkiss on Instagram. I I assume that you're on Instagram, right, Dylan?
I am. It's just Dylan Watkiss. So.
Do you want me to promote that or?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Sure.
Do you guys have any other plugs or anything, or?
Dylan, we got
a Story Hustler Instagram page. That's just Story Hustler _. So that just has some of the snippets from our episodes. But the main stuff's on YouTube. Trying to grow that platform there. So like and subscribe.
Nice. Are you guys on
there's my Insta.
TikTok or anything, or?
And we're on TikTok. Yeah,
nice.
That's a little less updated, but yes, we are on TikTok. Everything's Story Hustler with a picture of me and Mike. So mean mugging the camera usually.
Yeah, I wanted to get into the rapid fire questions real quick. This is the exclusive content, so I'm going to wrap up this portion of the show. So is there anything else you guys want to say, or you guys?
Well, I love exclusive content.
If it's a competition, you're going down.
All right, guys, we appreciate you hanging out with us, and we will see you on the next episode of Getting Blunt with Keith. Peace out.